Hello, Legacy students. Today we're going to talk about the special right triangle foldable. In case you were gone in class today, this is for you to make that foldable. You're going to need to find half a sheet of paper. It doesn't matter what color it is. What you're going to want to do, get the half the sheet, fold it into fourths, so make sure there's 4 pieces to it, up and down, and then draw a line down the middle. So basically you're going to be putting it into fourths. So it looks something like that when we start to write. And then take the bottom part and fold all the way up so that you just can see the top, so kind of have a little flap on the top. You can fold up or put up, and then make sure you label it special right triangle so that way it kind of sits there. And then go ahead and open it up. On the left-hand side, the top left-hand side little square we have, we're going to put 45, 45, 90, and then we're going to label the triangle here. So I have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Go ahead and draw him out. What that means is I know that the angles inside of him are both 45 degrees. So these two angles right there are both 45 degrees. I know that this guy is a 90 degree as well. So that's how we can identify that it's a 45, 45, 90 degree triangle. Let's go ahead and pop down to the next square on the left-hand side of your foldable. So let's label in my sides here. I got 45, 45, and then I got 90 there. Now, notice, guys, since my base angles, these two angles here, are congruent, I know the two sides opposite them also have to be congruent, because this is an isosceles triangle here. Well, let's say that these sides are worth x. They have a side length of x, which could be 3, it could be 4, whatever. I want to know what is my hypotenuse equal to. So on your third part, let's figure out the math using Pythagorean theorem. So on that third square right below on the left-hand side, we're going to want to use Pythagorean theorem to figure this out. So I got a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I know my a is x. I know my b is also x. And I am equal to c squared. Well, I don't know what c is, so I'm going to leave it to be c squared. Well, an x squared plus an x squared, that is, well, that's just 2x squared, right? Because there's 2x squareds. 1x squared plus 1x squared is just 2x squareds. Equals c squared. Well, we want to know just what c is. So let's square root both sides. So then square and square root cancel off. I'm left with what c is. This is where it gets a little confusing. We gotta do the square root. So let's do, when I have two things underneath the square root, I can break them into two pieces, kind of like this. So square root of 2 times the square root of x squared. Well, the square root of x squared, that's just x. And then square root of 2 doesn't break down, so it's x times the square root of 2. That is my c. So this side is worth x, whatever my other sides are, times the square root of 2. And that's always going to happen in a 45, 45, 90 triangle. What this allows us to do is find the exact measurement, not decimals, nothing. We can find the exact measurement of the hypotenuse of a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Let's fill in then on the fourth row, the fourth little square on the left, let's fill in what we know. Well, we know that it's 45, 45, and 90. We know these two sides were x, so sides across from 45 are both going to be x because those are the base angles. We know that they're going to be equal. And then we found the hypotenuse is going to be whatever x is times the square root of 2 by our Pythagorean theorem. Now, in our next video, we're actually going to be able to figure out what the actual, how to actually use these in an actual problem. Right now, we're just trying to see how they were created. How did people find out that these examples exist? Let's talk about 30, 60, 90 now. So go ahead and go to the right hand side all the way at the top, and we will draw in our triangle here. Let's label some sides. So I got 30 here, I have a 60 here, and then we got a 90-degree angle here. Now, there is some labeling that needs to be done about 30, 60, 90. Since we know about if it's a larger angle, it's the longest side, right? So 90 degrees, this side right here has to be the longest side, which means that's the hypotenuse yet. This guy, 60 degrees, is got to be, his side over here has to be longer than the 30-degree side, just because larger angle, more side. So we call this the long leg. The one across from 30, if you follow along, that is the short leg of a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So just doing some labeling here. Now, next step down on that side, so the right hand side, next square, the second square, let's assume that we have an equilateral triangle, which means all sides are equal, and also we have angles of 60 degrees in each corner. Now, let's say I want to find the height of this equilateral triangle right here. Well, let's say I have a short side of x. So this is half of the way, this is x, which would tell me that the full side is 2x, right? Because if it's an x, it's got to be an x here. Well, if this side's 2x, that means that this side also has to be 2x, right? Because we said this was an equilateral triangle. Well, let's take that and move it and make a small triangle. So we're going to take this little half here, half of the big guy, and let's move him out down to the third piece in our, or the third square in our foldable. So let's go ahead and label what we know. We know that's a 30, we know that's a 60. Well, we know that the hypotenuse was worth 2x. We know what would be our short leg is worth x. We need to find the 60. We need to find this side, the cross from the 60. Well, what is that? Let's use Pythagorean theorem to find it out. So I got x squared plus b squared equals 2x squared, right? Because it's 2x squared, or whatever hypotenuse is, squared. So I got x squared plus, we're just going to leave that b squared. Now, 2x squared, that means to write 2x twice. So I got 2 times 2, that's 4. X times x, that's x squared, because it's 2 x's. Let's get b squared alone. So it looks like I got to subtract x squared from both sides. Be left with b squared over here equals, that's 3x squared. Let's square root our b, because we want to solve for b. So I got b equals, looks like I need to break this out. Square root of 3, square root of x squared. Well, the square root of x squared is just x. So it would be x times the square root of 3. That's what b has to be. That is the measurement of b. So, go ahead and fold up all the way until the top part where you've kind of drawn out your triangles and labeled. And let's write out what we know. Well, in a 45, 45, 90 triangle, the ratio of the sides are going to be x, x, and x square root of 2. So this would be x, this would be x, and this would be x times, whoopsies, times the square root of 2. Here's another way to put it. We know that the hypotenuse, right here, is whatever the leg is, x, times the square root of 2. we know that that is the formula to be able to find the hypotenuse of a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Let's then summarize our 30, 60, 90. Well, 30, we know this to be, we labeled that earlier, short leg. We know we labeled this the long leg. And then we labeled this guy the hypotenuse. So, we have a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Their ratio is x squared root of 3, and 2x. Now, they have two formulas to work with. The hypotenuse of a 30, 60, 90 triangle is 2 times my short leg. So remember, my short leg was x. And since it was only half of the triangle, that would be 2 times x for the full side. That would be the hypotenuse. So 2 times my short leg will give me my hypotenuse side. Long leg, though, he was x square root of 3, right? Well, x is just the short leg. So I can find my long leg by taking the short leg's measure times the square root of 3. That will allow me to be able to find the answer to my long leg. It'll tell me how long it is exactly. Here's our foldable all broken out. All the information written down just in case you need to look at it. And that's the end of this video. See you later, Sabers.